obviously, that's a day that I've thought about many, many times over the decades. And while at the time I knew that this was, to see every single senior student crying, that this was pretty rare. But as time passed and as I became a more experienced teacher, that realization about how rare this event was in terms of their emotional reaction, now I feel like it's even more rare and unbelievable than I thought at the time. I think part of it was the fact that in 1963 until 1961, kids were used to having a very old president, Dwight Eisenhower. And so someone, he was approximately my age now, and it was pretty hard for these kids to relate to that, and to have someone that, while he was still much older than teenagers, he was a youthful president. I think that had something to do with it. Possibly the fact that we were in a Catholic school and John Kennedy was the first Catholic president. That may have had something to do with it. But I've often thought, I can't imagine any other event that would evoke the same response, universal, of every senior in that class. I don't know how to explain the difference between the reaction in that class and in my class. There was only 1 year difference in the age of the kids. But to have 22 out of 22 or unanimous responding in the same way by just uncontrollable weeping was an image that's just been imprinted in me for my entire life. Shortly after I left that room, I didn't come back to that room except to make sure that they were leaving. Mrs. Schofield came on again and said that school was going to be dismissed, to go to your locker, get your materials that you needed, and to go straight home. So the rest of the weekend, I was glued, of course, my wife and I, over the weekend, to the television and the accounts on television. I did not see the Walter Cronkite, the iconic announcement that John Kennedy was dead, and seeing a well-respected American newsman become emotional and have to quit talking. But I saw that replayed later, years later, that particular scene where he made the announcement that Kennedy was in fact dead. The other image that I remember very well from television was on Sunday, my wife and I had gone to Mass, and we went to the church close to where I grew up. My mother had gone to earlier Mass. When we walked into the house, my mom was very nervous and excited and said, "Oh my God, watch TV, that the assassin of John Kennedy has just himself been killed." And so we were glued then to, we knew of course that they had arrested Lee Harvey Oswald, and then they replayed over and over the assassination of Oswald. And I can remember thinking, what a modern era it is to have coverage that can be repeated within an hour or two of the event, can be repeated and shown on television, and we're seeing that image of Oswald being shot over and over. This, of course, I think most people will have other strong memories of their first year of teaching, but I don't remember a whole lot about my first year of teaching, with the exception of this one event and the aftermath of this one event. So the image of seeing Oswald shot, and then another image a few days after that, of the funeral, of John Kennedy's funeral, where, well, let me back up just a second. The other image was they showed on television over that weekend the swearing in of Vice President Johnson, swearing him in to become President Johnson on Air Force One, and seeing Jackie Kennedy standing next to him in a suit, a woman's suit, and it was of course black and white television. But on the lighter colored suit, seeing the dark stains on her suit, and knowing, if it's because you know what has happened, and knowing what those dark stains are, they certainly, because of black and white, you didn't have to see color television to know that it was blood stains. You knew that that's what it had to be. That image has been kind of, I think, in my mind, and I'm sure most Americans that were alive at the time, kind of, you know, in our brain forever. And then the other one dealing with Jackie Kennedy was Jackie and her two children standing at attention as the caisson goes by them with her dead husband, and seeing her son, John, saluting his father. I'm sure someone had told him to do that, but you see him making his salute. That is another image that I'm sure for most Americans that were watching television at the time was there. I mean, I'm old enough that I remember other important things in American history prior to that time, but this is the first one that was covered, that I remember being covered so well or so tragically on American television. And I can remember thinking about, my God, the power of this media, the power of television. I'm sure that if it had only been radio, I'm sure that with just print media that there would have been shock and sadness and fear. But with television, I can remember even as a young guy thinking, my God, this medium is so powerful and it's going to continue to be powerful. And of course, it has in the lives of Americans and people everywhere.